4 whole years of watching Sara Myers clutch her head, hear things nobody else could hear, do things that made the entire fanbase want to throw their remote at the wall, and now, in Season 4, Episode 4, the show finally tells us what was actually going on. And the answer, it is way more disturbing than most people thought. Because it was never just a monster, it was never just the town messing with a fragile person. It was something with a plan. Something that has been threading a needle through every single character in Fromville since literally day one. So today we are breaking down the Sara mystery, connecting it to everything the Man in Yellow has been doing across all 4 seasons, pulling in some genuinely wild literary history that the writers are clearly drawing from, and figuring out what this means for everyone still trapped in that nightmare of a town. Buckle up, this one goes deep. Let me rewind for anyone who needs a refresher, or for anyone who started the show recently and got addicted immediately like the rest of us. Sara Myers has been in Fromville long enough to know the rules. She works at the diner, she keeps to herself, she seems quiet, almost gentle. But in Season 1, she starts hearing voices. Now, voices in a horror show is usually a red flag, but the thing with Sara is that these voices are not random. They are not just whispers of madness. These things know stuff. They know Boyd's military nickname, something that was never spoken aloud in the town. They know about the bag Father Cautry buried when he arrived, a secret the man took extraordinary steps to hide. They even told Sara before it happened that 2 cars would arrive on the same day. Think about that, predictive knowledge, omniscience over people's most buried secrets. Whatever was in Sara's head was not guessing. It was reading from a script it had already written. And it used that information as leverage, as proof, as a way to say, trust me, do what I say, and you get to go home. So Sara listens. She kills Toby, the guy who arrived with Jade. She leaves the clinic door open at night, which leads to a monster getting in and killing Bing Kyan. She tries to kill Ethan. And in trying, she accidentally kills her own brother Nathan instead. The fallout from that is something Sara carries like a physical weight through every season. She becomes the person nobody trusts, the person even she does not trust. And the voices mostly go quiet after Season 1, showing up only briefly in Season 3 to taunt her about Fatima being taken. The show let the mystery breathe, maybe a little too long for some fans. But Season 4, Episode 4, titled Of Myths and Monsters, finally closes the loop. Here is what happens in the episode. Sophia, the pastor's daughter who arrived in town with nothing but wide eyes and a soft voice, closes her eyes and starts muttering something under her breath. Words, not quite prayers, not quite anything you can pin down. And the second she does that, Sara collapses, grabs her head, the voices are back. Sophia then runs over and plays concerned, puts on the whole worried act. And that performance, that tiny, deliberate, utterly cold moment of fake concern, is the confirmation the show needed to give us. Sophia is the Man in Yellow, and the Man in Yellow has been the voice in Sara's head since the very beginning. Now, if you have been watching Season 4, you already knew Sophia was not who she claimed to be. Episode 1 made it pretty clear. The Man in Yellow killed Jim Matthews at the end of Season 3, tore out his throat, and then transformed into this harmless-looking girl to infiltrate the town from the inside. But what Season 4, Episode 4 adds is the confirmation that this is not a new trick. The shape-shifting, the disguise, that is just his current method. The voices in Sara's head were the older method. Same entity, different weapons. And if you think back to the Season 3 finale, the show also confirmed that the Man in Yellow was the voice on the radio that Jim heard at the end of Season 1. So this character has been running 3 simultaneous communication lines: the radio, the voices in Sara's head, and now physical infiltration as a person. He does not just haunt, he orchestrates. Here is the part of Episode 4 that actually made me stop and sit with it for a minute. When Sara does not comply with what the voices want her to do with the water, Sophia falls into the pool and gets hurt. And Sara, being Sara, immediately blames herself, because of course she does. The Man in Yellow designed it that way. Now Sara believes that if she does not obey, people get hurt. The punishment is transferred to the innocent. And then Sophia, still in character, still playing the concerned newcomer, tells Sara a story. The story of Abraham. God asking Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, not because God actually wanted Isaac dead, but to test whether Abraham would do it. The show is drawing a direct parallel. It was not about the act itself. It was about the willingness to obey without question. And Sara passed that test. She complied, which means the Man in Yellow now knows exactly which lever to pull with her. threaten the people she loves, and she will fall in line. This is psychological manipulation at a clinical level. And what makes it even more unsettling is that Sara has spent 3 seasons rebuilding herself after the damage she caused in season 1. She has done the work. She has earned back some trust. And now she is right back at the beginning, except this time the enemy is living in her house. Because yes, Sophia moved in with Sara. Physical proximity plus psychological access plus manufactured guilt. The man in yellow is not just targeting Sara. He is setting her up to be his instrument inside the community, someone who will push the residents toward distrust and conflict from the inside out. Here is what the show is slowly making legible. Every horror in Fromville that seemed random or disconnected has a signature, and that signature belongs to the man in yellow. The nocturnal monsters, they are the blunt instrument, predictable, brutal, and effective at keeping everyone contained and afraid. The music box, psychological pressure. The ballerina, the insects, the other apparitions, more psychological pressure. Voices in Sara's head, targeted manipulation. Getting a specific person to do specific things. The radio voice Jim heard. Another targeted channel aimed at someone with enough curiosity and technical inclination to actually try to decode it. And now Sophia, direct infiltration. Walking among the residents, learning their dynamics, manufacturing trust, and positioning herself to accelerate the breakdown. The man in yellow does not use the same tool on everyone. He studies each person, finds the fault line, and applies exactly the right pressure to crack it. Sara's fault line is guilt and love, the fear of being responsible for someone else's pain. Jim's was curiosity and the desperate need to find answers. And if you look at what is happening with Elgin and Fatima in the current season, the same pattern holds. Something is exploiting Elgin's faith. His belief that something meaningful and divine is happening. A being that can fake omniscience and manufacture miracles, which we have seen it do, can absolutely fake being an angel. Every character in that town is being played. They just do not know it yet. Now here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. And this is the stuff that elevates from a good horror show to something that clearly has some intellectual architecture behind it. The man in yellow's name is not accidental. In horror literary history, there's a figure called the King in Yellow, from a collection of short stories written by Robert W. Chambers, published in 1895. In those stories, the King in Yellow is connected to a cursed play of the same name. Anyone who reads the play goes mad. The king himself is a powerful, incomprehensible entity, a bearer of madness and damnation, associated with a mysterious symbol called the yellow sign. Parallels to From are not subtle. An incomprehensible entity, psychological destruction, symbols and knowledge that drive people to the edge of sanity. Manipulation that bypasses the conscious mind and goes straight for the deepest fears. H.P. Lovecraft later incorporated the King in Yellow mythology into his Cthulhu universe, connecting him to the cosmic horror entity Haster. The idea being that these are forces so old and so large that human concepts of reason, morality, or even survival do not register to them. People are not victims, they are pieces on a board. And more recently, you probably recognize this, HBO's True Detective Season 1 pulled heavily from the same mythology. Carcosa, the Yellow King, the spiral symbols, all of it tracing back to Chambers. From seems to be drawing from the same well. The man in yellow is not a local monster. He is not a ghost or a demon in any traditional sense. He is something that predates the town itself, something that the town may have been built around or built to serve. The fandom wiki for From notes that the credit listed on screen describes him as the man in the yellow suit, and acknowledges the likely King in Yellow reference directly. This is intentional. The writers know exactly what lineage they are tapping into. But where does this leave us? Sara is compromised. She's being gaslit in real time by something living under her roof, and she has no reason to believe Sophia is anything other than a lost, well-meaning girl. The broader group of survivors is fractured. Boyd is grieving. Tabitha is chasing the lake of tears. Jade is literally eating mushrooms trying to unlock his connection to the town. Julie is developing what the show is calling storywalker abilities, jumping through time. The community is scattered and distracted. That is not an accident. That is the man in yellow managing the board, keeping everyone occupied with their own threads so nobody steps back to see the full picture. The scarecrows from the lake are a new horror entering the frame. Victor, who has more historical knowledge of the town than almost anyone, is clearly aware of the man in yellow in a way the others are not. His fear of the yellow suit is visceral and old. And then there is the detail from episode 4 that the man in yellow was seen feasting on the remains of a previous group of townspeople in one of Julie's time-displaced visions. This is not the first group. There have been others, and they did not make it. The question the show is building toward is whether this group can do what no one before them could. Can they actually identify the entity, understand what it wants, and find a way to stop it or escape before it finishes what it started? The answer is almost certainly going to involve Sara. She has the deepest, direct experience with the man in yellow. She knows what his influence feels like in a way nobody else does. If anyone is going to recognize Sophia for what she really is, it might be her. I want to take a second here because I think the show does not get nearly enough mainstream recognition for what it is actually doing. From is not just a mystery box show. It is not just Lost with monsters. It is a genuinely layered horror narrative that has been patient enough to plant seeds in Season 1 and only now in Season 4 start showing you what those seeds grew into. Sara's voices have been there since the beginning. The radio voice goes back to Season 1. The Man in Yellow's reach across the entire timeline is massive, and the show has been building that case quietly, episode by episode, without spelling it out until the moment it actually lands. The 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes for Season 3 is not a fluke. This show earns it, and if you have somehow made it this far in life without watching From, please close this video, go to MGM+, start from episode 1, and come back when you have caught up. You are going to have a very bad time in the best possible way. So to put a pin in it, the voices Sara Myers heard in Season 1 were the Man in Yellow, always were. He used them to manufacture chaos, test her obedience, and get specific people killed not randomly, but as part of a larger strategy to keep the residents broken and divided. Now he is back inside her life wearing a new face, and Sara does not know it yet. That is the setup. What happens next is anybody's guess. Drop your theories in the comments. I want to know who you think is going to figure out that Sophia is not who she says she is, and whether Sara gets to be the one who finally turns the tables. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more deep dives like this one. New uploads drop regularly. See you in the next one.